Do you remember a time when the most mesmerizing screen in your house was the one with no picture at all? Think back. There was a time before the glow of a television filled your living room, before the nightly news arrived in your den, and before children's programming meant Saturday morning cartoons. Back then, the living room was a place of shared stories, not shared screens. If you grew up in the 1940s or early 1950s, your family's evening entertainment probably centered on a single beautiful piece of furniture, the family radio. Television, as we know it, was not commonplace in the average middle-class American home until the mid-1950s. Before that magical box with its flickering 1/4-inch screen arrived, the radio was the undisputed king of the American living room. For millions of us, those weren't just cheaper days, they were unforgettable moments of family life, all built around the sound of a voice coming through a mahogany speaker. Today, we're going to take a journey back to that time. We're going to explore the lost art of gathering round the radio, a time when families shared not just a home, but their imaginations. We'll remember the shows that defined a generation, the simple rituals that brought families together, and the day everything changed when a television set arrived in the neighborhood. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. It's a winter evening, maybe 1949. The house is warm, maybe from a coal stove in the corner. Supper is done, and the dishes have been cleared. Dad settles into his favorite armchair, the one with the worn-out armrests. Mom is in her chair with a basket of mending. You and your siblings are on the floor, maybe lying on your stomachs, listening. The only light in the room comes from a single lamp and the soft, glowing dial of a large wooden radio. It's the most enchanting thing in the world, and you're about to gather around it. The golden age of radio, roughly from the late 1930s to the early 1950s, was a time when the medium helped shape a common American culture. For kids growing up in that era, the radio was a vortex of sound, a place where their imagination was free to create images more vivid than any television set could provide. Without a picture to limit your perception, your mind was the director, the set designer, and the costume department all wrapped into one. You never saw a punch thrown or a glass shatter or a blood-smeared shirt as you listened to a detective show. You didn't know what the actors looked like, whether they were handsome or plain, tall or short. And honestly, that was half the fun. You pictured them exactly as you wanted to. Think about the Sunday night lineup that so many families would look forward to. You had Our Miss Brooks, a sitcom about a clever and sarcastic high school teacher who always had to deal with a stuffy principal. Then there was the Jack Benny Show, where the comedian's legendary stinginess and his cast of characters would have the whole family laughing. After that, maybe you'd listen to Mr. and Mrs. North, a detective show about a husband and wife team who always crack the case together. And just before the younger kids were sent off to bed, there was The Inner Sanctum, that dark drama that started every show with the eerie sound of a creaking door. That sound alone could send shivers down your spine, but it wasn't just the primetime shows. For the kids, after school, there were adventures waiting on the radio waves. There were the cowboys, of course. Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, and the Lone Ranger were heroes who came to life through voices and galloping hoofbeats. You could almost smell the campfire and feel the dust of the trail. Then there was Orphan Annie, whose adventures were sponsored by Ovaltine. You couldn't wait to use your special decoder ring to decipher the secret message at the end of each episode. And the message was always the same. Drink Ovaltine. We often talk about the good old days, and for many, Life in the 1940s and 50s really was a different world. It was a time before television, before the 2 4-hour news cycle, and before the pressures of modern life seemed to invade every corner of the home. In the post-war years, there was a huge boom in family life. People were getting married younger, having children earlier, and for the first time, the home became a place of real focus. Incomes were growing, and new homes were being built in the suburbs. In 1940, only 43% of families owned their own homes, but by 1960, that number had jumped to 62%. This period was the first wholehearted effort to create a home that would fulfill every member's personal needs. And at the center of this new, family-focused world was the radio. Listening to the radio wasn't just a way to kill time. It was a shared ritual. The whole family would gather together in one room. Unlike today, where everyone might be in a different room watching a different screen on a different device, the radio was a singular experience. It was the focal point of the living room. The furniture was arranged to make conversation easy, to have people look at each other. You might have had a piano in the corner, and chairs were grouped around a coffee table. People actually talked to each other, face to face. It may be hard for younger generations to imagine, but there was a magic to watching the radio. As a little kid, you would stare at that large piece of furniture, completely mystified by how a person's voice could travel so many miles and come out of that box right in your own living room. The programs weren't just entertainment, they were shared experiences. The news was something you heard together, creating a common understanding of the world. It was a time when news reports and leaders were believable in the public's mind. A time before the constant questioning of everything we see and hear today. And then, everything changed. For many families, the transformation happened on a single evening, usually when Dad came home with a big announcement. My family's story, like so many others, is a perfect example of this national shift. It was a Monday evening at supper in 1955. My dad put down his fork and announced that he had purchased a television for our home, and it would be delivered on Thursday. We were an average Midwestern farm family, and we were going to own a Motorola console television in a mahogany finish, with a 1/4-inch screen. Even in my dreams, I had never imagined that we would have a TV. Those 3 days of waiting proved to be as challenging as waiting for Santa Claus to arrive. The only thing that made it easier, or perhaps harder, was that unlike Christmas, I already knew exactly what my gift would be. I wasted no time the next day at school, assembling a small circle of third-grade girls to share my news. Most were properly impressed, I'm sure, with the exception of one girl whose parents were already prominent citizens in our town. This classmate spoiled my delivery by announcing several times that she did not understand the fuss, as her family already had a TV. What was the big deal? She kept asking. Her condescending attitude dampened my spirits only a little, though I was irritated by her attempts to steal my thunder. But time moved slowly, and Thursday finally arrived. I had butterflies in my stomach all day. I was out of my seat, heading for the door before the school bus even came to a complete stop. I saw that the huge roof antenna had been installed, and there was no holding me back. My sister and I raced each other through the yard to the house. My dad wasn't home yet when we got our first glimpse of the sacred shrine that would change our lives, so it fell to my mother to explain the procedures of operating the TV. She showed us how to turn it on and off, control the volume, and change the channel. And here is something the younger generation will never understand. The trickiest function of all was learning how to operate the rotor that sat on top of the TV. This device rotated the antenna on the roof so that it was facing the optimum direction for the clearest picture. Of course, we had no frame of reference for what a clear picture should look like. We just thought the snowy, fuzzy images were normal. Nor did we think ourselves deprived, because there were only 3 channels available to us in rural central Illinois, and each required a different rotor setting. For a 3rd grader, that was pretty high tech. And just that quickly, our radio days ended and our TV years began. Even my mother, who had not been an eager or informed partner in this purchase, made the transition. The world, as we knew it, had been transformed. By the weekend, my sister and I were seated on the floor in front of the screen, mesmerized by Saturday morning children's programming. The Lone Ranger, Sky King, and Captain Video are the ones I remember now. We were so entranced we'd even watched the test pattern, a static geometric design that was displayed on the screen when there was no programming available. It did not take much to entertain us back then. That was a different world. It was a time when the living room was arranged for human connection, not a glowing screen. It was a time of shared stories, imagined worlds, and the warmth of a family gathered together in the dark. But as the TV became the centerpiece of the home, something else was lost. The family shifted from interacting with each other to interacting with the set. Chairs were no longer arranged in a circle for conversation. They were all placed to face the television, side by side, eyes focused one way on the screen. The conversation was reserved for the commercial breaks. It was the beginning of a change in American family life that we are still grappling with today. Now, of course, we have our 7 2-inch HD flat-screen TVs that allow us to surf hundreds of cable and satellite channels, yet we still complain that there's nothing worth watching. We have smartphones, tablets, and computers that follow us into every room. The image is clearer, the sound is better, but the shared experience is often lost. We're all in the same house, but we're rarely in the same story. It makes you wonder what we gained and what we gave up when we traded a story told to our imagination for a story shown to our eyes. I hope this journey back to the days of radio has stirred some old memories for you. The past is a treasure chest of beautiful and important moments, and taking the time to remember them connects us, not just to our own history, but to each other. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please let me know by clicking the like button on this video. And if you want to travel back with us again, be sure to subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories to tell. What does this era bring back for you? Do you remember your family's first radio? What was your favorite program to listen to? Or maybe you remember the day the television arrived in your neighborhood. Share your stories in the comments below. I would love to hear them.